Joining us now is the ranking member of that committee, Illinois Congressman Rodney Davis. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
Hey, great to be back with you guys.
So the Constitution is very clear that Congress will be the ultimate arbiter of who is seated, right? It's the Constitution says, Article 1, Section 5, each House shall be the judge of the elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members, and a majority of each shall constitute a quorum to do business. All right, well, here's the trouble. The Republicans are in the minority, right? So your committee that you're on that kind of is going to hear this out, I believe it's currently 6-3 in favor of the Democrats. What is the plan to make sure that this election doesn't get overturned and given to the Democrat, even though it's been certified for the Republican?
Well, we're going to fight it as far as we can, and we expect to win. Now, Rita Hart, the loser in that Iowa race, has not filed an objection with the clerk of the House to actually begin this process. However, press reports tell us that she's planning on doing that. And with her Democrat law firm, Perkins Coie, and a guy named Mark Elias, who talks about being a lawyer, but then actually tweets about making sure he wants Democrats to win, we fully expect this to happen. So what we are doing is we're prepping. We're looking back at what happened in 1984 and into 85 when the Democrats stole a Republican seat.
Yep.
By removing a Republican member. And the good news is the law is on Mariannette Miller-Meeks' side. Iowa's Secretary of State, Paul Pate, gave her the certification that she won the election. Let's not overturn the election in the will of the Iowa voters.
And does Rita Hart, does she have a case here? Is her case going to hold up?
You know, not in a legal sense, but this process that the Constitution lays out has been hijacked in 1985 and in other cases by Democrats. And that's why she's going to file directly to the House, because all this is, it's politics. It's a political process that's now shrouded in legalese. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that the voters in Iowa understand that they need to have their voice heard. Their winner, their election certification shows that Mariannette Miller-Meeks, she won. It was by 6 votes. But hey, what better chance to tell people every vote counts?
So here's the thing that's interesting about this dynamic, right? You've got the president who is fighting certification in states. He's claiming that certain, aspects of fraud and irregularities are happening. The Democrats saying this is ridiculous. There's a certification. But now it would take the Democrats saying we're going to ignore that entire argument and pull the certification from the Republican, right? I mean, but how do we square this? It's sort of an interesting argument because at the presidential level, Republicans are arguing, well, the president, it feels like there's fraud. What would the Democrats' argument be?
Exactly the opposite of what they're saying in the presidential race. One thing I found out in my 8 years in Congress is that Democrats, they have no shame when it comes to putting politics before the voters. And that's why we're going to be prepared to do what we can to defend Mariannette Miller-Meeks. She has the right to be sworn in. She has the right to represent Iowa's 2nd District. She won, according to Iowa election law. And we need the American people to stand up, help her, help us make sure that the Democrats don't steal a seat in the Congress.
Yeah. And Congressman, we're like 5 weeks out from the election here. So what's the timeline of this? When are we going to have an answer?
Well, Rita Hart, the losing candidate in Iowa, has 30 days to file this objection with the clerk of the House. Again, she has yet to do that. That would then clarify what process we would have to go through on the Committee on House Administration. So as we look forward, at that point, there would be depositions and legal processes that are all shrouded in politics because it's the House. And they would have 70 days to move those through the process. Then we would get to an adjudication either at the committee or within the House. And at that point in time, if it gets that far, we know the Democrats are going to try to use their slim majority, even though they lost overwhelmingly on election night in the House of Representatives elections. You just talked about it in California. I'm so glad to have my best buddy, David Valadao, back in Congress after being cheated out of the race 2 years ago.
Yeah. Congressman, I appreciate you coming on. This is something that we're going to want to really stay on top of and monitor. So if that gets filed with the clerk of the House, I really hope that you'll come back and give us an update because I think this is something that we cannot and will not allow to fly under the radar.
I'm so glad you guys are talking about it. I would love to come back on. I appreciate you helping to be the voice of reason, and we would love to be back.
Yeah, because Democrats just want to make sure that no one sees what's happening. So, Congressman Davis, thanks for all the work you're doing, and we'll check back in with you soon.